Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Warcraft news, where we've got a lot to cover. Mike Morhaime has founded a new publisher and 2 studios to go along with it, which is a pretty big thing, and we've also got some unfortunate Blizzard rumblings to go along with that news. Then, pre-patch watch, because we've now got a release candidate. We just don't have a release date. There's also new WoW movie rumors. There's the Stygia grind in Shadowlands, which is somewhat being revealed, so we can now understand that and where the Maw fits in, as well as a big wave of Covenant ability changes. Yes, in some ways it may be a fundamentally unbalanceable sort of hodgepodge of layers of systems, but they sure are giving it a shot. Plus, of course, a few more tidbits, and BlizzConline, the I'd say a little bit cheesily named replacement for BlizzCon, which has been confirmed too. Speaking of things that have been confirmed, I can confirm it's almost the end of September. Very spooky, which means the end of this month of Patreon. It's Warrior Month. Do you want the Warrior pin along with the prints and the sticker? Well, if you do, now's the time. Straight from our game dev art team over to your post box. And of course, that's what has helped us do so many things around here, get 2 new staff on, and that's all been super helpful, and it's all going straight back into the content that we make for you. Okay, with that said, let's get into the news. So, Mike Morhaime, the co-founder of Blizzard Entertainment and longtime president up until his departure, along with his wife Amy Morhaime, they have actually founded Dreamhaven. Dreamhaven is a publisher. Well, it basically will serve as the publisher for, right now, 2 studios. So yes, a publisher and 2 studios. That's what they've set up. Those studios are Secret Door, which seems to be for smaller, more intimate projects, and Moonshot for maybe larger, more expensive ones. Currently, the whole thing is being funded by the Morheimes, and it has a HQ in Irvine, which to me seems kind of wild given its extremely high price, and I would say pretty low quality of living. I mean, at least from the perspective of where I'm from, I don't know, I wouldn't really like to live in Irvine, but that said, it is also in Blizzard's back door. And when you see that this company is almost entirely made of Blizzard veterans, yeah, certainly if you're a Blizzard staffer and you're not particularly happy with your lot in the company, and then you kind of see, oh, my old boss has set up a new place, totally self-funded with no outside interference, just down the road. Yeah, you can see how if they did want to poach people from Blizzard, they're kind of setting themselves up to do that, which is, I suppose, interesting. Now, anyway, let's move on to the actual studio. So, or the talent even. Secret Door's studio head was the executive producer on Hearthstone, StarCraft 2, War 3, and Heroes of the Storm. And then Moonshot studio head was the production director of Hearthstone for Blizzard. But that's not it for the big names. I mean, there's so many big names. We'll cover just a few of them. Eric Dodds, the Hearthstone director and WoW designer. Dustin Browder, the lead designer of StarCraft 2 and director of Heroes of the Storm. They're both they're both there. And both Dustin and Eric actually worked on the cancelled StarCraft shooter from, cancelled last year, and they quit Blizzard after it was cancelled, so it's no surprise they ended up here. Then there's Laurel Austin. You will know at least her art, because that's from, say, Burdens of Shao-Hao, Warbringers, Harbingers. Fairly sure she also led the most recent, wave of those for Shadowlands as well. So, obviously, I'd say she's a pretty incredible talent. So, I mean, damn. Then you look at the other names, and it's mostly Blizzard veterans, right? So I'd say this is great. There's a real concentration of talent with the initial 27 people who are working at this company. Now let's talk about Mike's interviews, because they're interesting. The focus is entirely on being dev-friendly, on not chasing short-term cash, and them not being in a hurry to secure funding. And what they want to do is they want to ensure they retain control over the company, and that means that any investment they take must be aligned with that. And when you read in between the lines of Mike's stuff, it seems like the dude kind of just wants a fresh slate where he's got a bit of freedom and he hasn't sold the company and sort of lost control. He actually said that Blizzard were only independent. This is, Mike, he brought this up in an interview. The Blizz were only independent between 91 and 94, and he reminisced over this, and he said that you can only have so much independence when you are part of a publicly traded company. Of course, Activision Blizzard was the publicly traded company they were a part of. And again, that's just kind of alluding, you can either say it's alluding to problems, or you could say it's alluding to the guy's got all of this money. He kind of just wants to do it again, do it fresh, and, not make a financially motivated decision like, say, selling the company, something like that. Now, along with this, Tips Out also did some tweets. This is interesting. Tips Out is a classic streamer, and he tweeted takeaways from a phone call that he had with an ex-Blizzard developer. Now, while we cannot verify this specifically from him, we just have to take his word. I would also say that soon, I'm going to talk about how you will have to take my word on something, because last year I seemingly had a pretty similar conversation. So according to this person, lots of senior Blizzard staff are either leaving or have left. Some to Dreamhaven, some to Second Dinner, which is Ben Broad's studio, and some to Bonfire, which is Rob Pardo's studio. Now, according to them, and this is the big bit, what you've heard from Kotaku is the tip of the iceberg. That's pretty big, and supposedly Activision is moving in hard. What does that mean? It just means more oversight and more control from Activision. You have to remember, Activision Blizzard is basically the parent company. You then have Blizzard Entertainment and Activision Publishing. Now, Activision Blizzard has way more sort of control over Activision Publishing, you could say, than it sort of has done with Blizzard Entertainment, which is ran a little bit more independently, but that is something that is far, far less the case these days, and will only continue to be less the case over time. And there's a lot of people who have an almost cult-like love of Blizzard and never want to speak bad about it and get really angry when people do. But don't be like that. It is a corporation at the end of the day. The same goes for any companies we mention. So last year I spoke to I was surprised, but it was a Blizzard staffer. I was surprised, sort of development. I'm not going to say anything else past that. Obviously, I do not want to sort of out the identity or role of this individual, as that would obviously be a very compromising thing. But look, I can confirm that person is who they said they were because it was on FaceTime, right? Could see. Pretty simple. So you'll have to take my word, obviously, but it was legit. And everything you've heard from Tips Out is true. It's simple as that. Everything you heard from Kotaku is true. Activision are moving in. They are taking more control. What does that actually mean? Well, it basically, it's not some sort of humongous evil thing like in a movie, but it basically does mean that non-development departments like, finance and stuff have a bit more control. They end up calling more of the shots. The deadlines change, just all of those sort of little small things that are a humongous tightening of things, I would say. But yes, Activision is very much moved in. That's a thing. And it's trying to think, sort of what I can and can't say. I'm just going to cut to the chase and basically say, is any of this a surprise? Yeah, the 800 layoffs. Morale, I can tell you, has been terrible at Blizzard since then, and it's still not particularly great. There's a revolving door of World of Warcraft community managers. We saw that for a brief period of time. Seemingly, they just haven't really staffed them up. So I don't know. I just have to assume at this stage that Lore is doing the job of like 7 different staff, which is commendable. I know that guy works so damn hard. But you've got that. You've got many people, like key people in WoW, just disappearing into internal projects. Then broadly from Blizzard, a lot of the senior people have left, right? Including for Amazon's MMO and all of those other sort of ex-Blizzard startup companies like Second Dinner, Bonfire, and of course Mike's company. And overall, if you look at World of Warcraft, it seems like the team has got production problems. And I know this is not a popular thing to say, and it certainly won't make me popular with them, but it's just getting to the stage for me where my friends fill me in on how much content has been put into Final Fantasy XIV, and it just absolutely thwacks WoW. Like, they put in so much more content, and you do have to then wonder, how is the most profitable, biggest MMO in history struggling to compete with Final Fantasy XIV? Do they have production issues, or is it just they keep on trying to reinvent the wheel with systems and kind of get nowhere? Hard to say, but it's kind of rough. But yes, that stuff of lots of staff leaving and Activision having more control than Blizzard, that is true. Anyone who tells you that's not true is, basically, I would say, being willfully ignorant. I don't want to fully get into stuff, but that's the situation. You just have to take my word for it. Now, in fairness, Blizzard have had their problems, right? If you're running a business and you're always over budget and over time, then maybe that's not good. Maybe Project Titan should have been cancelled way earlier. Cancelling Diablo 3 Expansion 2 happened under Morhaime's leadership team. That was obviously a bad move to make. Not allocating resources well. Overwatch 2 was starved by the StarCraft shooter project. That's something that was sort of also mentioned to me, let's just say. That's obviously not the way that things should have gone for their bottom line. If you care about the bottom line, you put all the resources into Overwatch 2. Now, Personally, I'd vastly prefer a StarCraft 2 shooter, but I'm definitely in the minority there. Overwatch 2 is what would make the beans. That's where the resources should have went. So it's that sort of thing where, you know, if you're in some of those other Activision studios, or you're in Activision Blizzard upper management, and you are used to just running a brutally tight ship with your other studios, just look at what they've, like the way they have treated QA staff, contractors, and Treyarch, which is one of the other subsidiary companies. It's really rough, right? Really rough. You know, ActiBlizz upper management can be real dicks to the people that work for them, but they're probably there trying to run this tight as possible ship, and they probably look over at Blizzard and think, why are those projects like that? Why is everything behind schedule? Why is everything over budget? What's going on? So if that's the context you're making decisions in, and then you look at Blizzard and you just sort of see it's a bit more kind of crazy and, you know, loose and freeloading and, hey, we're Blizzard, man, we're all cool, then yeah, if you're a big corporate Activision Blizzard, you're probably going to want to rein that in. That sort of does make sense. It's all, you know, it's all a bit sad though, isn't it? So yeah, I mean, just look, keep in mind the Kotaku reports of around the time of the 800 firings, you know, all the talk of mass cost cutting, things like that. Stuff's all real. It's all real. I will, you know, I can put my reputation in that. I'm not lying about sources or anything like that. You will obviously just have to sort of take my word for it, but that's what's up. Obviously, we do have to separate the corporation, the corporate entity, from the people, right? So if anything, all of these bad things going on and all of the teams still trying to make the best games they can, that is an admirable thing for the staff at Blizzard, because I would imagine that if anything, those same Blizzard developers now have got to do their job, probably with less flexible timelines and with budget cuts happening around the place, which certainly makes their job harder, which does mean that perhaps actually shipping things for them is even more of an achievement because it's an adverse situation, or, you know, sort of an adverse scenario. So have empathy for the Blizzard staff. You can criticize the big corporate entity, leave the people out of it. They're almost always good people, and I mean, hey, we all got, you know, the Blitzchung situation, people got angry at Blizzard, but you still have to remember, Blizzard staff went outside and protested their own company. So that's the situation. The overall thing here is, the Blizzard founder has made his own publisher and 2 studios. It's full of ex-Blizzard talent, a lot of the more old school ones, and that could be pretty exciting. Okay, with that said, let's get into World of Warcraft. Let's talk about the state of pre-patch. I've got to admit, this is really, really strange, right? I mean, you must feel this too. Normally, Blizzard are far more communicative with this type of thing. Like, they've already done a big blog post covering the content that will be removed from the game and, you know, what to expect from the, say, the season's ending, what to expect from the first pre-patch. Of course, that's the one without the event, you know, warning that, you know, like, seasons are going to end, it'll be post-season. They've done that post, but they've not told us when. That's really bizarre. It doesn't normally go down that way. And it just does make me feel like they're holding back to make as many fixes and bounce as many things as they humanly can before it gets out. I'll have to double check a few things, like if the legacy raid problems have not been fixed yet. They did say they would fix them, haven't confirmed that. But, you know, a week ago, I had strange Talador scaling problems when I was leveling doing research for our guys. You know, and it's strange those issues are still there. I mean, we usually know when pre-patch is by now. I mean, actually, pre-patch would normally be out by now. It's a bit bizarre. And I think all of this does kind of further the notion that Shadowlands is struggling for time. And I don't mean that in a way that is harsh to the Blizzard developers. I actually mean that in a situation where they had unprecedented challenges with work from home. But I then imagine that, you know, much like how your yearly Call of Duty is going to come out when your yearly Call of Duty comes out, it just seems to me that Activision were probably just like, no, your release date is then. You don't get to change it. I feel like that might actually be what will happen. I mean, it's weird. The pre-patch content itself isn't actually super extensive. And man, when you look at Shadowlands itself, I mean, Threads of Fate leveling, I've been testing that recently and it feels very first pass. Promise, first pass though. The Maw seems a bit under-designed. It hasn't really changed that much since it first made it onto the beta. You know, it feels like they're struggling for time, and I don't mean that as a way to beat them up. I mean that as I empathize with them, and I know they have a real development challenge, you know, to actually overcome. I do have to wonder whether a few months delay would have been right for the quality of this game, like what they did with the Burning Crusade back in, you know, 2006-07, but don't know if that's going to happen. You know, I know it's not going to happen, but yeah. Anyway, pre-patch look. It'll either be 29th of September, which would be very close and without much of an announcement, or the 6th of October. I think it's hard to tell which one it would be, but I will say if it was the sooner date, then I imagine they would have told you by now, which does make me kind of think it'll be the 6th of October. And if it is going to be the 6th of October, well, that's V1 of the pre-patch. The pre-patch that actually has the event, I guess that would have to come out a week later, which would, I mean, that means that it's not that long of a pre-patch period, right? Because it would come out on October 6th, and then, you know, a week after that, you'd have 2 weeks of the pre-patch with the event, and then you'd pretty much be almost straight into the expansion. So, yeah, I don't know, man. There you go. Pre-patch. The release candidates there, we don't really know a hell of a lot else, though. There's a problem with Khadgar. He seems a little bit confused by time. The Khadgar realm connection ended up being rather botched. This is a bit unfortunate. Many of the denizens of Khadgar have in fact been sent back to their Mists of Pandaria days. Yeah, like they're level 90 now. They used to be max level. Some characters have just been deleted. Yes, it's a botched server, like realm connection. Quite the mistake to make, but you know what? I mean, Blizzard are probably very unhappy about this too. They have assured people that this is in no way a permanent thing, so it seems like they will be able to do rollbacks and fix the issue. Obviously, unfortunate for the affected players, and also a little bit funny that everybody just got, you know, wound back in time to mop, kinda. Okay, the World of Warcraft movie. We have had some WoW movie sequel rumors crop up, and yeah, I mean, it seems that this happened after loads of people got well, let's just say got the rocks off over the idea of Henry Cavill playing Arthas, and I mean, hey, he was pretty damn good in Witcher, wasn't he? So I could see that. Now, I'm fairly sure the initial rumor was debunked, or at the very least, completely unsubstantiated. That said, what put a bit more fuel on the fire was none other than Chris Metzen himself, tweeting about it in a rather playful fashion. And it certainly is interesting because, you know, he was like a producer and an uncredited writer on the first movie. But it'll be a bit wild for Chris to be contributing to the movie, a second one, and then actually contributing to active, you know, rumors on a project that he's working on. That would be weird. So I'm very much in the camp of thinking, like, it's way under a 50% chance that any of this stuff is real. And Chris did later tweet saying, "I know nothing, just sharing what I saw." Likely fake? Probably. I mean, the first movie was a strange beast, right? It kind of had that thing where it had no bankable stars. Many people would like that, but, you know, for doing well in the domestic US market, maybe you do want a bankable star. It had an underdeveloped human cast bar, maybe a bit of Khadgar. Lothar stuff fell kind of flat to me. Now, the orcs, they fared far better. I'd actually say the Duratan was pretty much perfectly done. Still, it's the thing where Duncan Jones's original cut was actually quite a bit longer than what the studio released. So, you know, could it be studio interference that kind of murdered his original vision for the movie? I'd kind of say so, reading in between the lines. Now, when we actually think about things, according to Duncan Jones's tweets, the second Warcraft movie would have been essentially like a young Thrall, like, you know, in basically a young Thrall in the camps. And then the third movie would have actually been kind of taking you up to the founding of Orgrimmar. So then I just have to wonder, is the second and third movie basically Warcraft 3? And would that then be setting it up for the next set of movies to be, you know, Wrath of the Lich King stuff? I'll certainly say, if they wanted something a bit more safe, probably doing, you know, the Lich King arc with a bankable lead role, you know, bankable lead actor, that probably would have been the way to get, you know, normie butts in seats, at least in the US domestic market, where that market did not give a crap about the WoW movie, right? Barely. Relatively speaking, not that many Americans showed up. It was the EU and China where Warcraft did really well, which I suppose is that thing where the Chinese cinema market's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, so you could say then that maybe the case for a Warcraft movie only increases over time as that market becomes more and more relevant. Okay, next up, Blizzard have updated Venari, who is the Stygia vendor in the Maw. That's pretty interesting because for 2,500 Stygia, you can get a legendary recipe. That's pretty big. Then you can get the, Torghast Anima Power expansion for 500 Stygia, a socket for 2,500 Stygia, and, this is weird to me, a random conduit / random upgrade to your lowest ranking conduits for 500 Stygia. And this does mean that Stygia will be really important, right? If you're a player who cares about performance, you obviously will know that getting the right sockets is super important, so you'll want to be basically maxing out your Stygia every week. Now, you can get limited Stygia per week in a decently time-efficient manner from Torghast Twisting Corridors runs. So you can do that, and of course doing a max level twisted, or the max level that you can do, twisted corridor layer, the highest layer you can do, that will grant you all the Stygia rewards from the previous layers, which would be decently time efficient. And of course, if you want to learn more about that system, you can check out our video for details. Now, you can also get Stygia from the Maw World Quest. It's usually, I believe, if memory serves, it's like 50 a quest, so you'll want to go there daily. Also, rares, it will drop from the rares, and it seems like it can drop from mobs. It was a lot more so in older builds. Right now, it seems far less common from mobs, so I really don't think people would be doing that. And it still is hard to tell what's going on with the mod, to be completely honest with you. I mean, as we've said multiple times, it appeared onto the beta. It kind of was like weird, you know, a bit more hardcore. You can't mount up. It's got these Dark Souls-like mechanics. You know, you're kind of thinking, oh, Blizzard are really trying an experiment here. I wonder where it'll go. And then the answer is it didn't really go anywhere over beta. So in my opinion, Blizzard kind of put them all out there and they sort of ran out of time. So now it's just a spooky world quest zone with no mounts, which I don't know how much players will like that. Weird. I mean, the opportunity to make good on the promise of the Maw, which is what I originally thought would happen for launch, I think that might just happen in a future patch, which is a bit concerning. Now, there are, of course, for some players, concerns over Stygia farming, right? And that's a bit worrying because the Twisted Corridors of Torghast, they were supposed to be cosmetic only, but now they actually give you a currency which can get you sockets and legendary recipes and conduits and things like that. And to me, I don't really care. I'm not going to farm Stygia for those things. But I am worried that people who don't love Torghast in the way that I do and who don't want to do the Twisting Corridors will now feel kind of forced into a bit of content that they don't want to do. I know that's something like, you know, sort of Preach and sort of that lot have been worried about, and I'm worried about it too. Also, there's a bit of upgrade gacha, right, going on with the sort of the random conduits. I mean, hey, look, I understand the random stuff as a design tool. It kind of totally does work in our monkey brains. But still, there you go. So the Maw, we haven't really known what its purpose is going to be. It seems like it will indeed be your Covenant weeklies and then getting Stygia on a daily basis via doing its world quests so that you can get these upgrades from Venari. Okay, next we've got the real meat of things. Blizzard have posted a massive wave of Covenant ability changes. It covers monks, demon hunters, warriors, DKs, mages, warlocks, shamans, hunters, priests, and rogues. It's a lot, and really it does include like a lot of changed up Covenant abilities, and this is a good thing to see because, you know, Blizzard, or Ian had made his big post, promised all the bounce and all that stuff, and then it kind of just didn't happen. Seems like they were banking it all to do one big pass. I mean, hell, rogues flat have got a new Covenant ability, so that's quite something. Okay, enough preamble, let's get into it, and we're going to kick it off with the DKs. Alright, DKs, your Night Fae ability has been redesigned. Basically, many DKs kind of felt they didn't even have a choice here because this one was like so good. Right, so that was a big concern for people. Well, now the ability works similarly, but the strength increase and damage taken decrease is now a bit more tied to your main attacks, and it also actually caps at a lower amount, so it overall is like a little bit nerfed. Now, Blizzard say this means the Death's Due is basically more rotationally impactful, and it's more balanced with the other Covenant abilities, and it does seem like that is going to be the case. So, probably good for DK choice. Next, DH. Demon Hunters have seen another ability pass. So, Night Phase, the Hunt, does more damage, it does root the enemy for less time, and now has a much higher, basically a higher dot that is capped to 5 targets. And, well, hey, I suppose I did complain about this ability being sort of cool as hell, but a little bit weak, so fair enough, Blizz. Now it's a bit better. They actually say, though, this will be more competitive with the Venthyr Sinful brand, and they've also given the Kyrian ability a similar buff. So that's all good news. And then as for the Necrolords, they have said they're going to be taking another iteration on basically its idea. Overall then, for the Demon Hunters, basically Blizzard are trying to deliver you more balance. Next up, we've got the Hunters, which I'm actually seriously considering as a main, where Blizzard have once again iterated on Covenant abilities, and I think pretty good stuff. Many people memed on every Hunter spec being in the trash tier for Night Fae on the spreadsheet that's going around, which is kind of sad to me because I did like Night Fae, and it seems like Blizzard are, well, working on a fix there. So, the Night Fae Hunter ability has to really cut it short, it's been massively simplified. You now just use it does damage in its area, it impacts all the targets in the area, and then you and your pet, your damaging abilities will hit up to 5 targets that are within that area. Essentially, it's easier to understand, easier to use, easier to balance, and hopefully competitive with the other ones, such that the choice is going to be there. Then moving on to the Kyrian one, well, it's got a bit more of a radius, and when your target leaves it, you actually get a 4-second grace time on the ignoring line of sight portion. Then Flayed Shot makes Kill Shot free to cast, and the Necrolord ability has been bug fixed and now avoids CC'd targets. Again, we'll have to see how it all shakes out. It seems good though. Obviously here, more balance for many people will equate to more choice, so it's important they get it right. Then next, the mages. They've made it so that Mirrors of Torment will tie into your spec's main mechanics. So, of course, that means mana for Arcane, Brain Freeze for Frost, and Fire Blast's cooldown for Fire. And it can proc from auto attacks. Now, the goal here was to make this a more consistent good thing in PvE, instead of being, as they put it, a niche PvP ability, which is really a bit of a funny, situation for a Covenant ability to have ended up being in. Now, there's something I noticed here when I went in to verify some data mining. Previously, right, Blizzard had a conduit that increased spell damage whenever a mirror is consumed. Now, this used to be 10%. Stacking 3 times, 30% spell damage. It was pretty incredible. But now that these changes have happened, the current data mining points to that conduit being 1%, not 10, still stacking 3 times. So what's the take here? I would say that I think Blizzard have realized they really shouldn't use conduits to shore up weaknesses in Covenant ability designs, right? Because obviously people don't know what conduits are, they're going to be getting for their Covenant before they actually make the Covenant choice, because they've never interacted with the Soulbind system before, so that would suck for the average player. But also, it's just harder to balance things that way. So yes, they've instead decided to change the core of the spell, and I think that was a good move. Then finally, they also did buff the Kyrian ability in terms of its magnitude and duration, which again, should help with balance. Next up for the rogues, Blizz have replaced your Venthyr ability with a new one called Flagellation, and I'm sure that's maybe in line with how the Blizzard developers are thinking about balancing this whole thing. So, it's an instant cast that slashes the target 3 times. This deals damage, and it applies a debuff for 45 seconds. This debuff causes an extra lash to hit the target for every combo point that you spent, up to 25. Then, though, when you use Flagellation again, what it does is it removes the debuff and it gives you 10% mastery for 25 seconds. And then, once you remove that buff from the target by using it again, it incurs a 25-second cooldown. So, 25-second cooldown, 45-second duration, that means you can use this once a minute. But because you can, basically use it again, right, to sort of consume the buff and give you the mastery, or the debuff on the target, the mastery buff in you, I suppose you could then use that to more, easily line up with maybe your other cooldowns, things like that. So it's interesting, extra damage on demand and then a mastery buff. Seems cool in principle, but obviously we will need to wait and see how it actually plays out in the testing. Next, we've got yet more Shaman changes where the Venthyr, Necrolord, and Kyrian Covenant abilities have all had a balance pass, and then the Night Fae one has actually been changed a bit, where Blizzard have basically reduced the number of targets that it will heal from 8 to 4, and they've made it so that it gives you a stack of Maelstrom weapon when you use it for enhancement, and then it's also had its numbers tuned. So once again here, it's a similar theme to with the other classes, a big tuning pass and a few changes, just to make it so that the balance is a bit better. Next up, monks. You actually got a blue post, and I know you've been counting. You haven't got many, but you have got one now. Or at least one more. So, there you go, it's my old main in BFA. Probably not one I'm going to be playing, though, because it just doesn't seem like it's a high priority for Blizzard overall. Well, what's happened? Energizing Elixir is off the global cooldown. Spinning Crane kicks target cap and damage is up. The Kyrian ability has been redesigned such that Rising Sun kick reduces chi cost by 1 for 5 seconds, and then Blackout kick's cooldown reduction element has been doubled, which I guess should help you maintain your mastery a bit more. So there's that. Then there's some bug fixes. Rising Sun Kick rank 2 is back, and they are aware of Storm, Earth, and Fire's many bugs and inconsistencies. And they've said they're making every effort to improve it, but those bugs have been here for a long time, so I don't have much hope. Would a redesign of that ability be better? Honestly, I think so. And there you go. That's it for the monks. Mistweavers. I know they still really, really want a bit more love. I hope they'll get it. Right now, it doesn't seem great for Mistweavers. Who knows? Who knows how we're going to end up? Blizzard have ran out of time. Anyway, let's move on. Then next up, Blizzard have tackled the big decimating soul spec imbalance problem where, okay, basically, right, it was disproportionately incredible for the Affliction Warlocks when they had certain talents. This was a glaring flaw for ages. In fact, not to be mean here, but it was kind of wild that it ended up just like that and kind of useless in terms of giving us like an accurate view of the end game for so long. But anyway, it's finally been tweaked so that basically across the specs, it fits a bit better. Yeah, it's been fixed. That's a big improvement, which should help the balance for the Warlocks. They then also balanced Soul Rot to basically do more damage to its primary target and to only cost you mana, not to also cost you your health. Again, though, we have to do a whole bunch more, testing and stuff like that to actually see how the balance is there, or, is shaping up, but there you go. That's Blizzard's big wave. We'll have to see if there are any other big waves, and what the problems are from this one. Yeah, I mean, balance is going on. We're very, very close to launch. I'm worried, right? I'm worried that this stuff is so late, that we're seeing ability redesigns so late. But there you go. I mean, will it be balanced for launch? Who the hell knows? Will the balance stick? Because that's the problem. Once you take into account, gearing, trinkets, conduits, legendaries. I mean, there's some conduits that are giving, a percentage-based increase, but then the way that will scale with you getting more gear will potentially be very off-kilter for different specs and different covenants. I really think that this is one of the hardest to balance systems Blizzard have ever introduced. And the problem is, it's one of the hardest to balance systems they've introduced, but it's also one where the balance needs to be the best because you're locked into that choice, ideally speaking, for the long haul. At least that's Blizzard's intent. So they really have to nail this balance. I just think this is going to take a lot of resources over the entire duration of this expansion. And I don't know, I mean, I kind of just suspect they'll kind of just like nerf the hell out of conduits to have them make less of an impact or something. But look, anyway, this was a wave of good changes, but we will just have to wait and see, what else is to come. Will these be successful? I think that this is by no means a fix to overall problems, and as much... much of the problem is just that even if the initial balance is okay, it's not going to scale with gear and conduit rank and different legendaries and different combinations. And then when they bring them back into the game, tier set pieces and stuff like that. So this is sure to be a complex system that will, I would say, remain complex to balance for quite some time indeed. Bonus rolls, they're gone, it's been confirmed, and Blizzard have said that the functionality of bonus rolls has actually been captured by the Great Vault. Of course, the Great Vault, it's giving you multiple different choices of a bit of weekly high item level gear. And the whole thing about the bonus rolls is they were kind of bad luck protection, but now Blizzard feel that with the way that gearing is going in terms of design, that the Great Vault actually fills that role. And while we haven't played with it yet fully in a live scenario, I do agree with Blizzard. I think the Great Vault sort of does take that role. Now also, the Great Vault's backup resource has been revealed. It is anima. It's just a weekly bunch of anima if you want that instead of gear. And I will say, that's not really what I expected. It's anima, it's useful for things, but it's not gear. It doesn't fulfill that same sort of role for your character. Back in BlizzCon, when they announced that, I kind of expected some sort of, Valor Point-like backup system, but that's not what it is. Anyway, moving on, the same post also talks about item levels in general because some people were a bit confused or concerned. So Challenger PvP, Heroic Raids, and Mythic 7 Keystones are at 213 for item level. That's their goal. Then, for things like Mythic Loot and top-end PvP, those are item level 226. Of course, the final two bosses, though, are, I believe, 7 item levels higher. But Blizzard's goal here, design-wise, this is the bit to understand. Their design is that there should be parallel progression in the, the most highly organized, sort of highest forms of multiplayer content, which is, of course, your PvP, your raids, and your M+. And the Blizzard's intent is that you can get the highest levels of gear by doing any of those things, but that people who choose to dabble in multiple of those things and to a high level, that they will be rewarded by a faster rate of item level progression. So there you go. That's Blizzard's design goal. Next up, we have a great confirmation and great news from Legendaries. So, Legendaries can be upgraded in item level by using more Soul Ash. This basically means, right, you can just instantly build the lowest item level, fastest version of the Legendary that you want for your spec. And that's fine. You can just upgrade it after. And it's not more expensive to do so, right? So, basically your choice is you can go deep on one Legendary, or you can, go wide and go for a few. I think that's actually a really good system. So yeah, well done, Blizz. I was a bit concerned about the implementation there, but it's nice to know that you can just get the Legendary you want as soon as you can and just upgrade it at your leisure afterwards. I think that's pretty solid. Then next, some quickfire, just a few things. So the appearance change service is obviously irrelevant because it's free at the barbershop, and that means that when pre-patch comes, it is being discontinued from the Blizzard store, which is, of course, good news. Then the Wandering Ancient is the mount that won Blizzard's mount competition. So yes, Asmongold did not get his caterpillar. Very sad, but there you go. The Wandering Ancient will make it into Shadowlands. And then also a nice tidbit that is totally Wowhead's find, and just a nice confirmation. The weapons from Castle Nathria, the first raid, actually have got Covenant-specific appearances. And of course that's great, because they then will look really good with your Covenant armor set that you probably will be trying to get. So overall, I'd say fantastic work there. It certainly looks nice. And I mean, those things being specific to your Covenant definitely does help with the lower sort of diversity of like armor type, the lower diversity we've had with the sort of BFA and onwards era of gear. But of course, the good news is Blizzard did tease a return to class sets at some point in Shadowlands, so we do have that to look forward to. And then finally, to cap us off, the weekly review for us as an organization. So, videos for Warcraft. We had our Torghast deep dive. Holy crap, that did really well. Yeah, I mean, hey, Covenants worried the hell out of me, but the Torghast feature is shaping up great, and I think they've done a great job. So it was great to see people enjoy that video. Also, reasons to return, we did that, and our professions overview, which went up on Friday. So that was the Warcraft stuff. Over on our industry news channel, well, we've got the video on Bethesda being acquired by Microsoft. We have a deep dive into Activision Blizzard's mismanagement of esports that is overall a bit of a wild situation. We've got our Dreamhaven deep dive, so if you want more sort of color in that story, check out our other channel. Then also we've got a video going into the chaos of the recent wave of pre-orders between Nvidia, Xbox and Sony. Then also we've got in the works, I don't think it's up right now, but our investigation into the state of No Man's Sky, because the game has just been in this humongous rise back up to prominence and to great reviews, and No Man's Sky version 3 has actually just came out as a free update, and it seems to be pretty sweet. So because of that, we're taking another dive into that game to see what's up. Of course, BlizzCon 2020 has been cancelled, but Blizzard did say they would do a virtual event, and that has been confirmed. It is BlizzConline, rather cheesily named, and it's going to be taking place in February. That's basically it. We've got to wonder what they're going to show there. In terms of things, I think it makes a lot of sense for World of Warcraft to start talking about patches, right? That would be pretty exciting, I would say. Usually what happens is the sort of the BlizzCon around a WoW announcement is pretty quiet, but if this is a few months onwards, then they can talk a little bit more about those patches. So that's pretty cool for WoW. As for other Blizzard products, I'm not particularly sure about, HOTS, StarCraft, Here's the Storm. I imagine Hearthstone will just continue on with expansions and adventures and stuff. I mean, in fairness to the Hearthstone devs, I've been really blown away with how just creative and well-designed some of their recent content has been. But I think the main thing will be Overwatch 2. I think that's the thing they really need to start announcing and talking about, so I'd say that's what they'll do. And really, there's not much else to speculate about. There will be BlizzCon, it'll be a 2-day stream, and it will be taking place in February 2021. So with all that said, that is it for the news. Yes, turns out it makes for a pretty chunky episode when Mike Morhaime goes and starts his own, game publisher and 2 studios. How wild. Anyway, that is it for me. Of course, if you want to support what we are doing, and also get a whole bunch of cool stuff from the Game Studios art team, then, hey, you can check out the Patreon. It's Warrior Month for the next few days, so if you're patroned within these days, then the way that it works is Patreon will charge your card between the 1st and the 3rd of the next month, so if you do it now, you'll be charged in a few days once it takes over to October, and once we get that list, bam, everything will be sent out to you. So, that's how that works. That's it for me. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.